Hi, guys, and welcome to the Any Mum Can podcast and live on Facebook and YouTube tonight. I have a fabulous guest with me tonight. This is Michelle Francis Smith. She's here to talk about expectant mums of special needs children. And she is a mother herself, a best-selling author, mentor, teacher, doula, which is amazing, and registered massage therapist. And it seems like she's done this from the point of gecko, basically, straight out of university. And she's been practicing for 20 years. You've got to meet my sister. She's been doing this a long time too. This graduate in front of me went to University of Toronto and has served as a massage therapist, educator, and principal in Canada and in India. Wow, that is pretty amazing. And so her passion is for treating perinatal patients with a focus in pregnancy and postpartum. A woman after my own heart, looking after women in those early stages and really quite still underserved population. Yeah. So I'm going to hand over to you, Michelle. I can't wait to hear more about how we can encourage and look after expectant mums of special needs children, because this is a really, really sensitive area and an important area to raise awareness of. And these mothers need just as much care, if not more, than a mother, an expectant mum who's having what we would deem as a normal child. So, and I would do that because who is to say what normal is? Okay. Mm-hmm. So Michelle, over to you. I'm looking forward to hearing this.
Thank you so much, Versha, for having me here today. I'm so happy to talk about this topic any day of the week. First of all, in saying that I am a mother myself of 3, how I came to focus into the specialization of working with mamas who are expecting a baby with a special need and or maybe already have a child with a special need is because I am that mama. So one of my 3 daughters, I have 3 daughters, 18, 14, and 12, and my 14-year-old has Down syndrome. I learned that she would potentially have Down syndrome during my pregnancy. So I was around 20 weeks pregnant when you do the anatomical scan. And that's when I learned that my husband and I learned that more than likely she would have Down syndrome. You can imagine what the stress was like for the rest of that pregnancy. You know, you get 37 to 40 weeks of pregnancy. And while it's not always easy or even enjoyable, I felt like I was robbed of my pregnancy. Learning this information, while in some ways was somewhat helpful in preparing, it probably at that first stage did more to create stress, anxiety, a lot of tears, a lot of trauma. And I mean, I'm here to share my story that ended up turning out amazing. Desiree in our life, you know, from knowing that time and then her being born and then getting the confirmation has been the biggest blessing of my life. She's influenced every area of my practice. She's influenced how I am with moms now. She has influenced how I am in the community. So I'm so grateful to her. And I thought one of the best ways I could give back at this point, 20 years into my career, would be to actually focus on this area where these women are very underserved. Just typically in the perinatal spectrum, often women are underserved, but especially women who are having a baby with a special need or have just had a baby who has a diagnosis. Underserved. So what do they need for their mindset? What do they need for their emotional, physical, and spiritual health? What do they need to keep going? What do they need to get into the flow of their pregnancy, birth, and beyond? So that was a big inspiration for my creation of the Flow Birth and Beyond method to support these mamas and babies and families.
Yeah, such important work. And wow, real inspiration from your daughter to take this step and create something and make a difference. Because I really wholeheartedly believe that this whole, it's changing. I can see more people coming through and supporting women in pregnancy. It's not an easy journey in itself, you know, creating services to help these women. I've done it. I did it for 9 years, and it wasn't an easy path. You really want to make a difference to people's lives, but some people can't make time, can't prioritize themselves. There's so many factors that play into helping women in this part of their life stage. But it's amazing that you've created something that can make a difference on a mental health point of view, because I think that's a pregnancy, in terms of how you can move your body and all those things, are probably pretty much the same, but it's the mental support, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And also there's probably quite a lot of fear around how they can move their body, because this is, okay, what is my body? You know, there's probably some guilt, something worrying them that
shame.
has something. Shame. Yeah. What have I done? Did I do something to
have this happen?
Yeah,
totally. I mean, I can speak to that. The question came up, especially in my relationship. My husband actually, for the longest time, struggled with bonding with our daughter because he blamed himself for her diagnosis. He thought that somehow he had just made poor decisions and it was landing on her. Because I'm in healthcare and I'm a medical professional, I already understood that trisomy 21, which is Down syndrome, is a genetic thing that happens at conception. It is completely cellular. It is not influenced by what we do or don't do. And he's a beautiful man, and there's nothing he could have done to deserve something that was going to be a challenge. But really what we did is we got a gift. Desiree has been a gift. She's taught us so much about resilience. She's taught me so much about becoming what I call a flow mama, which is someone who really just embraces what is, stays present in the now, and recognize that life and everything in it, including the pregnancy, your children, is like water. You know, you have to find that love overflowing within. Find that flow. And it's going to change. The current is going to change. You know, the obstacles in the water are going to change. When you get a chance to just float, baby. And when you feel like you're crashing against the shore, you know, just relax your body and try to find your way onto the sand, because that is the reality of our pregnancies, our postpartums, our beyond, and life with our children. You can never predict what's going to happen. So losing that need for control and to determine everything and to know everything and to be more with the being with has helped me so much in my own life. It helps me in my professional life. So I thought I have to bring these things together. And the pandemic is really what influenced and sparked me to do that. I've had this vision for like 14 years. But I've been a busy practicing massage therapist and educator. I have, a continuing education company that you see behind, Perinatal Massage Therapy Education. And I've been so busy doing and parenting and being a spouse and being a daughter and a friend and all the things that women are. And it was the pandemic, the shutdown, the initial shutdown that had me say, what am I doing if I'm not providing support for my niche? And I can't provide hands-on care for them, but I can provide them with support that they probably would never get if it wasn't for the pandemic and going online. And then my program was birthed.
Wow, how amazing. And so many great things. I know the pandemic has been extremely difficult, challenging, scary, unpredictable, unforeseeable. Oh my gosh, so many things, right?
So many things.
And I don't want to undermine those things, but it is wonderful to hear when something beautiful has been birthed that is making a difference to people that are really genuinely struggling and feel probably they don't want to even talk about it. Sometimes there are so many things we don't want to talk about, one that we really probably should, that would really make a massive difference to the quality of our life, the quality of each day.
Absolutely.
Pregnancy is special. I mean, I remember leaving my job when I was I was going on mat leave. And I recommended it. Everybody was saying, "Oh, go off," and got flowers, gifts, and all these things to go on my mat leave. And I had such a beautiful experience of pregnancy. And I said to all my bosses, I was like, "I really recommend pregnancy." I told all my friends I was one of the first to have a baby, and it was just. I loved it. My second child was very, very different. I could have slept for the first 3 months, but it was. And it is unfortunate to have a poorer or less stressful pregnancy. And there's so many reasons why you'd have stress in pregnancy. And so anything we can do to help that, it's actually a direct impact, direct influence on that child, because they are a child. You may not see them,
That's
but
right.
everything we do, think, feel, they feel it all.
They feel
For
it
sure.
all. And we're like that as well. Like when you're having trauma in your pregnancy, that trauma is living within that child as well. And because as I told you, that's my second daughter. My first pregnancy was textbook, I call it the princess pregnancy. I actually talk about it in my chapter in my book, in the anthology. My princess pregnancy with Bianca, everything was textbook, and it was just joyful, and the baby shower, and there was no stress. It was like, I'm having a baby and everything is just beautiful. And then you go on to plan for your second and you expect it to be similar. And then you're getting rushed off to tests and you're on examination tables for 2 hours and people are running in and out. They're not telling you what's going on, but you can see that they're stressed. You can see that they're concerned. I spent so much of that pregnancy running around like a headless chicken to appointments. It was finally when I sat down with a counselor and I said to her, I feel guilty. I'm not even connecting with this baby. Because we knew at this point she would likely have Down syndrome. We were given the opportunity to terminate at 29 weeks pregnant. In Ontario, they will allow you to terminate late, very late.
Wow.
For certain presentations of the baby. And Down syndrome, even though it's a healthy diagnosis, Down syndrome doesn't mean that you would have any serious medical conditions. It's on the list. So our midwife had to reluctantly tell us about it. She said, I know that you've already decided to proceed with the pregnancy, but I have to legally tell you that you have the choice to terminate. And, just dealing with all of that was so heavy and so hard. I felt like I'm not even connecting with this little one, this special little one. I'm not even connecting with them. So my counselor gave me a few tips right that day on her couch about how to connect for the last, I think it was 8 weeks of the pregnancy. That's when I showed up in my pregnancy. And I remembered those steps that she gave me and have built many other tools around that. That was the influence for my program. Because I thought, how many other women never got that support? Either they didn't see a counselor or they didn't see an amazing counselor, right? And how many people have missed out on any part of their pregnancy? Like, you should still be having the baby shower. You should still be doing the announcements. You should still be doing the photo shoot. You should still be looking for those baby clothes. But when you're under that kind of stress and worry, and maybe you're raising other children, I had another child at home who's a toddler and working full time. There was so much going on. And so I know how important it is, and especially at a time like this with the pandemic, where there were less services, less in-person support, just less opportunities to be face-to-face and be vulnerable, that I needed to really show up with all of my teaching, doula, coaching, knowledge of special needs, even the birth education side that I have. I put that in there, supporting with breastfeeding. I've taken some training in that just to be able to be there and be a bridge, if nothing else, be a bridge to support women to the other side and into their postpartum powerfully. Why should they be in that postpartum state feeling like they're less than or their child is less than, when it's completely not true.
Yeah, I hear you completely. And it's a really, I think there are a lot more appointments, even when babies are born. There's a lot more involved on the other side when baby arrives. I think you will end up being last.
Yeah.
Because especially if you had other children as well, or have other children. And I said earlier that I had not experienced somebody with a special needs pregnancy, but actually it came to me as you were talking. Actually, right at the beginning, when I first started my first year, there was a client, but she didn't tell me. And I don't know if she did know, but then it was after baby was born.
After baby was born, yes.
Yeah, and then when we had dialogue and I supported and helped her, I remember just how rushed off her feet she was. There were so many appointments she was attending, and she didn't feel able to take time out for herself at all. And I think it's especially because she didn't know. I think she would have told me as a person helping and supporting her through her pregnancy. And so I think being caught off guard and not knowing.
Yes, there's a lot of catch up that you're having to do. Like, that's a whole other obstacle. There's the obstacle of knowing before and maybe the impacts there. But there's also, I think I went into my pregnancy postpartum more powerfully because I knew. I did some research. I was able, back then, 14 years ago, there was not all this online support, right? We didn't have all this Facebook and groups and all these things. So it was a lot of like reading books. And then I found an association in my local area, which I'm actually now a board member of. The area I live in is called Durham. So it's the Durham Down Syndrome Association. I'm actually a board member on that association. I volunteer to support families when they get the diagnosis, whether it's when they're pregnant or they get the diagnosis afterwards, to connect them to community supports. So this kind of thing, I didn't even know where to begin, but I think it's even harder when you have a new baby. You're trying to just nurse or bottle feed or do whatever. You're trying to get sleep. You're trying to just keep up with the needs of the new baby and heal. So it's hard to figure out yourself, and everyone needs a helping hand. Everyone needs support, especially community.
So how do you deal with, how do you support women with the stigma attached to special needs children, and how we all know politically correct, but there is ingrained beliefs or ingrained attitudes that we need to address as mothers, bringing in these children into the world, but as a society too. These are human beings, and they just bring a different perspective to life. How do you navigate this and help people?
Yeah, well, I kind of sum it up in saying that we are perfectly imperfect. Our children are perfectly imperfect. So while we might sit on a high horse and say, hey, my child was born, 10 fingers, 10 toes, that's often the statement people make. I don't care what the gender is, as long as the baby is what? Healthy. That's always the statement, right? And so what happens if maybe the baby doesn't have 10 fingers and toes? Or maybe the baby isn't, deemed overly healthy when they're born. They have a diagnosis. Does that mean that now, we don't have the proper child? We don't have the child we wanted? I focus on allowing space for my moms to feel what they're feeling. So the first thing I do not do is minimize what they're feeling. If they're feeling stress, anger, frustration, guilt, shame, embarrassment, I create space for it all, because you first have to deal with what is there. And then I think the timing was exactly right for me to create this program 14 years after I had my baby, because I have 14 years of lived experience to share with them. I have images and video of my daughter doing all the things that other children do. You know, she's a 14-year-old now. What is she doing? TikTok. What is she doing? She's scrolling on YouTube. What is she doing? You know, slamming her door and giving her sister's attitude. And I'm like, we laugh. And some people are like, oh my gosh, look at that attitude. I'm like, don't you know how grateful I am that she can do that? There are some children who don't have Down syndrome. They have something else. And maybe they're struggling to walk at 14. Maybe they are unable to, you know, to communicate verbally. And it doesn't mean that one thing is worse or better than the other. It's just different. So I'm just grateful for whatever is. And I know that where she struggles, you know, another child might thrive, you know, who has a different situation. So all I come back to is perfectly imperfect. Your child who's perfectly, quote unquote, healthy today, tomorrow could have an issue, just like we can. My 18-year-old had had surgery on her heart when she was 13 to repair a hole. She was born with a hole. My second daughter, Desiree, who has Down syndrome, was born with a hole. She did not need surgery. Her hole closed up on its own, and she's the one with Down syndrome. We were all expecting her to have heart problems because more than like 50% of children will have heart problems who have Down syndrome. Yet she has a perfectly healthy heart that didn't need repair, and her 18-year-old sister, when she was 13, needed to have surgery. You know, you just never know. You never know what's going to come your way. So instead of having this hierarchy in the end, why don't we just love on our kids and let them be exactly who they are? Because they are the lesson and the light that we need in our life. They're the future. They're paving the way. And they were given to you. She was given to me. All of my babies were for a reason, to make me who I was, who I am, who I'm meant to be. I wouldn't have been able to reach the different levels of who I am if it wasn't for each one of my girls. So all I stay in is a place of gratitude now. I recognize I didn't start there. And so I share that openly and transparently with my mamas as hope for them, that they can feel what they're feeling right now, which may be pretty shitty, pretty upset, pretty, you know, feeling hard done by, and they can overcome that.
So true. I really felt those words, because I truly believe our children are gifted to us, and I share that view actually, that they're here to teach us. You know, every time they trigger us, it's a lesson that they're there to show the mirror, teach us something. And if you don't respond or take heed, the lesson just keeps coming back, and you just keep getting triggered over and over again.
Right.
And it's a perspective many are not willing to see. Some are, and some are not. And as soon as you accept that, I think it's actually really relieving. It takes a lot of pressure off. Instead of trying to manage a child,
yes,
it's me. It's me that needs to do the work, not them.
It's freeing. You know, when you said that, the word freeing came to me. Anytime, like my mamas, when I massage them, they talk to me about everything under the sun. You know, a lot of what they'll then tell me, because all of my, you know, clients are pregnant or postpartum, they're in the first, like, you know, 0 to 5 years of childrenhood. And I'm now in the like 12 to 18 years. My oldest is going off to university, you know, moving out of the house in the fall. I'm in a different stage. So I'll share something with them where I look like a complete idiot, you know, like something happened and I was kind of like dumbfounded when I looked at my kid. And I'm sharing transparently, and they're like, you know, Michelle, thank you for telling me that, because I thought that I needed to be the one to correct my kids all the time. And I said, when they're small, don't get me wrong, you got to make sure they're safe. You know, you want to teach them how to look after themselves. But there comes a point where they start teaching you a heck of a lot more than what you're teaching them. And if you can put your ego aside, the way you grow together is really empowering, because they gain confidence by seeing that, yes, you're my adult, you're my parent, you're someone I look up to, and I can teach you something. I can teach you something. I have a voice in this world. I can teach you something. And then they also see you practicing humility and gratitude and valuing their opinion, valuing their experience. And what that has created for the relationship I have with my girls, and I got this from my parents, is we're much more freely self-expressed. We can say what we're passionate about without worrying that we won't be accepted. We can go after the things we want in terms of career or friends or relationship and not fear that we'll be judged, because that's the kind of foundational parenting that my parents gave me. And they didn't receive that as kids in Jamaica, growing up in Jamaica. They're from the Caribbean. They did not experience that. They were not free. They were not able to just say things to adults. But when they came here, they said, that's not how we're going to raise our kids. We want them to be fully self-expressed. And my husband and I use that term frequently with our kids. We want you to be fully self-expressed.
And how did that go? Like, when did you talk about this from a young age with your children? So that expression didn't feel alien.
Right. It's more like modeled it. So my father's a retired social worker, musician since he was a little boy. So when we were kids, he would do things like, we'd be walking to school and he would clap a rhythm, and he would say, copy it. And I would copy it. And he'd say, you do a rhythm with your feet, with your hands. And we would do this all the way to school. I stopped feeling self-conscious, right? Because you could make a mistake. You could just, make up something and he would say, oh, that was so great. Even though, it was probably like not wonderful, but didn't matter. He used to make us sit and we would each take turns saying anything. It's like, it's your turn. You can share anything you want. Do I have to sing? Anything you want. Do I have to dance? Anything you want. This kind of way of being is what we do in our house. We have instruments around. Sometimes people are trained, sometimes they're not. They just play. You don't have to be a musician to play the piano or pick up the drum or start playing the trumpet like my 12-year-old is. She didn't know how to play it, but she made a sound on it. This is something that has been there from the grandparents. So they kind of even just created it when our kids were born. That was still going. And it shows up in how we are with each other. The pandemic really highlighted that in our house because we were home together a lot, like so many other families. And when my daughters, especially my eldest, would talk to me what was really going on in her life, I don't think without the pandemic and being in close quarters like that, it would have come up. But when she did, and I just sat and I was with her, present in my superpower of just being present. Yep, tell me more. How are you feeling about that? I'm with you. I hear you. I love you. It didn't matter what came out of her. That's when I knew for sure that the lessons were there because she was taking me up on those invitations. She was finding me on her own. It's amazing to watch it unfold, especially now that they're older, because we have so much fear as parents. Am I getting this point across when they're younger? But you really can't tell until something happens and they have to either show up or not. And when they start doing that, telling you about the difficult things, the things that they're embarrassed about, the things that they're ashamed of, the things that they thought they would never tell you, but they're just telling you, I'm just like, yes, I'm here and I will always be here. And that's where it became clear to me that it's working. And then listen, Flow Mama is like, it can change tomorrow, right? Tomorrow she could look at me and be like, you just don't understand me. And we've had those conversations too. I mean, I'm 43 and she's 18. Of course, there's things I don't understand about your existence. And there's things that are exactly the same. When I look at you, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was doing exactly that when I was 18 or thinking exactly that. So yeah, it's life unfolding. It's constantly flowing. And so I just stay with that. I don't get too attached to things are going great and it has to stay this way, or I'm a good mom if it stays this way. I'm a bad mom if it doesn't. I'm just in the flow. I'm a flow mama. Up, down, sideways, upside down, on my head. I'm a flow mama. We'll get back, on our feet again. but we're going to fall. That's just the way it goes.
And it's life.
It's just life.
Right? It is life. And it is the joy actually in life that nothing is constant.
Nothing is
constant. I think there's greatness to take from that, because if anything does feel really terrible, stressful, high pressured, or awful, we know that it's not permanent. It's not going to be continuous. The rain it stops at some point, right?
That's right.
Experiencing life like that, you just know each day you're given a fresh opportunity. Your children do. You have fresh opportunity in your pregnancy to have a different experience of your pregnancy. Close your eyes, go to sleep, wake up the next day. You can have a different experience, even if you're having pelvic girdle pain, even if you've got all various aches and pains going on for you, and you need assistance walking or any of those things. You can choose your perspective, and it is as powerful as that, between your ears, influencing what's going on in your mind to help move you to seeing what you're struggling with, to being actually properly your power. Because most things you can take power from.
That's so right on. And it made me think about something that you had asked, in just preparation around, things, mantras that help me. Because when you were talking about what's between your ears, your words are powerful. Our words are powerful. They create thoughts. Our thoughts create patterns. And how can we use that to, free ourselves? How can we use that to help ourselves and heal ourselves? So when I was creating the program, I was really looking at the words that I wanted mamas to have access to. And one of the mantras that I'm just going to read, it's very brief. I am a flow mama in transformation. I believe in myself. I am perfectly imperfect. I have everything I need within me. I deserve peace and joy. I am here for a reason and a purpose. And it's something that I created as part of a longer daily affirmation in my program. And I read it. It's like, it's not just something I created and it's like, it's for other moms to use. No, because we're all on the spectrum of flowing at different stages in our motherhood journey. I just happen to be coaching mamas who are in the beginning stage. But the coaching that I've created, I use it for myself, and I need it for myself. Because nothing is easy or predictable. It's an up and down journey with all of your kids at any stage, and whether they have a special need or not. There's just certain things that you might prepare for with a child with special needs. But believe it or not, I'm having more challenges now that she's 14 and a teenager and transitioning into high school and the different things that come with that than I did when she started grade 1, 2, 3, all the way up to grade 8. She was just very easy. Things were very low maintenance. So I realized, okay, all of this work that I did to prepare this program is actually me needing to do that work again and again and again on my flow journey.
Wow. So this journey, it's continuous, right? And what you learned from maybe the same sort of coaching you gave yourself when she was very young, while you were expecting her.
Yeah.
Every time you then redo this thinking, redo this coaching, think about the affirmations you use, there's a different reason why you would be doing those things at a different point in your journey of motherhood.
That's right.
And because we're experiencing something different at that point in time. Because nothing, every day, every time in your life is unique.
That's
and right. Amazing. I'm so in awe that you've created something like to support women in this really fragile place, really. Whether it's not to undermine how other expectant mums are going through their pregnancy, but it's an exceptionally challenging time. So I honor you for doing this work. And it's great that you have had the experience firsthand with your own daughter, your own pregnancy experience, the stress and the time you didn't get to have in bonding with her, but then you really embraced it in that last 8 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then you can teach that, you know, that don't do what I did, but embrace every moment.
Embrace every moment. And that's what that was one of the, you know, jumping off points for the program was I'm fortunate that at least I got those 8 weeks. Like I came to know what I didn't know before the pregnancy was over. Now I realize, well, if this kind of knowledge and wisdom and support was there at the time of 20 weeks when I found out, I would have had a much more peaceful pregnancy overall, but I also would have had more celebrations around her coming into this world. I would have been more prepared to help family members get knowledgeable on how they could support me. I would have created a better postpartum plan so that I wasn't dealing with the stress of, okay, toddler and meals and all that stuff. So I've really pulled in all of my birth educator, doula stuff, the stuff I learned with Desiree and from supporting other families now in 2021 with this diagnosis, but also with others, and realize that it's a whole package of things that we can have access to if we just have some direction and a little support around it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you, how can they reach out to you, Michelle?
The best way is to get me on Instagram at Flow Birth and Beyond RMT. So find me on Flow Birth and Beyond RMT on Instagram. I have great links there if you want to have further conversations. I have free downloads in my link tree in my bio. I'd love to hear from you and love to know how I can support you.
Fantastic. And thank you, Michelle. So into just a few things about you. So you have shared quite a bit about your experience with your family, your children, and you've mentioned briefly some other things that I asked you to think about. So I wanted to ask you, what would you say your superpowers are?
Mm-hmm. So a main superpower that I have been told that I have, and I definitely see it come to life, is my ability to be present, fully present with my patients, my students, my coaching clients, my doula clients, despite what's going on with me and despite what's going on in the world. I have seen this come up in some pretty significant situations in my life. One opportunity or one thing to share would be when I was in Uganda. I went to Uganda on a missions trip with some pastors and educators. They were going there to educate other pastors. And when we went to Uganda, it was around 2015, 2016, there was an election going on. And unfortunately, our planning for the trip, we didn't realize there was an election going on at the time. And with that election was a lot of stress in the communities there because there's a lot of political tensions. So the pastors who were leading this are now faced with needing to keep us safe, keep themselves safe, and they've brought this team down and they're kind of like, oops, how did we miss this? How did we miss this? And I remember suggesting to them, I know I'm not really on this trip to necessarily be a massage therapist, but at the same time, I can see that you need support to be able to support those pastors who are here to teach, who are also living in this environment with these elections and the stress. Can I do that? And I did. And the youngest pastor on the trip, he's in his 20s, he's a youth pastor. And he sat with me and he said, Michelle, I didn't know you very well at church, but the one thing that I've taken away from you that I'm going to bring more into my pastoral delivery to people is how to be more present with the people that I'm working with. And I looked at him and I said, oh, that's really great. He said, I've never seen someone be so present. Didn't matter what was going on around. There was, uprest, there was yelling, there was fighting, there was rioting happening outside. When you were sitting with me, providing care or just listening to me, it was like the world stopped for you. You were just focused on me. And him telling me that, especially about 13, 14 years into my practice, when he told me that, a bell went off for me. And I thought, that's what my thing is. That's why I do well in the classroom with students and they connect with me. Because when they're having a problem, when they're learning a technique, everything else stops and I'm just with them. What do you need? What can I do to support you? What's the challenge you're facing? When I'm with my clients, there's stuff going on with my kids. Maybe I'm getting an emergency text before the treatment, but when they arrive, it's gone. I'm with you. What do you need? How are you? And so I realized that is my top superpower. It's just the ability to be present with whatever it is, trauma, pain, joy, whatever it is, you are it.
Wonderful. What an amazing superpower to have that ability. Yeah. And what would you say your self-love and mental health practices are?
Mm-hmm.
I love asking these because I love hearing what other people do.
Yeah. So in 2018, after many, many years in practice, and I didn't have a regular self-care for mental health, for self-love, I let myself be busy being busy. And I think it's common for moms to do that. But in 2018, I lost my eldest brother to suicide. And our family.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Our family was hit, of course, really hard. I was hit really hard. I'm the only daughter, and I have older brothers, and I'm the youngest. And I'm the caregiver. I'm the healer. And I felt like I had dropped him, missed him. How could it be possible that I'm right here helping other people and I couldn't help him? And in my asking these questions that have no answer, right? So you can just drive yourself crazy. I was making myself pretty sick. And I realized I need something, and I need something fast. And fortunately, a close friend of mine, she goes by the name Julie Black. She's an artist, a musician, a creative person from Canada. And she had started a movement called 100 Strong and Sexy. And it came out of grief. She had lost her mother the same year I lost my brother. So I was at her mother's funeral. And then shortly after, I'm talking to her about my brother, who she knew because we grew up together. And she said, we got to move through this grief. This kind of grief, you can't just talk about it. You can't just cry about it. You need to physically move it out of your body. So I've created this thing, 100 Strong and Sexy. So we started moving 45 minutes a day. We would get online. We would take a picture. And it was just a free 30 women doing this. Well, that was in 2018. It's grown to, hundreds of women doing this movement. And so what it now is it tackles the mental health part with affirmations. It tackles the spiritual part, whatever your belief system is and whatever you believe in, there's a space for people to have that aspect tended to. It deals with the physical and it deals with the nutritional. And so moving through, getting more physical, and I grew up as an athlete, but I had let a lot of that go. And I really needed to come back to the roots of movement, pure movement, yoga, walking, stretching, meditation and breathing with some just gentle range of motion. And then sometimes it was like a spin class, or it was a soka size class, or it was a step class. So that has been sort of like a springboard for me, basically using all the tools I already know and support my clients to use: meditation, affirmations, journaling. All of it became alive again in my grief and my recovery from the loss of my brother, and connecting with community, other women.
Wow. Gosh, and what a momentum to have. And so sorry to hear your loss. Mm-hmm. It's hard when you do this work and you heal and help others and people that are in your close circle.
Yes.
It's really hard, questions are unanswered, but you've been able to take something from, I'm sure you've taken lots of things from the experience, and I won't ask you, but those hard times, anything that happens to us in our life that challenges us, takes us down, makes us go in.
Yes.
Eventually, when we come back out with the strength of others, support of community as well, we can really transform that experience to make us resilient and strong, and do something for ourselves that we may not have done before. So hats off to you, respect to you that you did that. And thank you for your time today. And I honor you for sharing so openly about things that you've encountered in your life, how those things have shaped your life, how they've shaped the things you bring to the planet to make a difference to other human beings, and help other human beings have a greater experience of their pregnancy, their experience of postpartum.
Yeah.
You do great work. And I can't wait. I'm going to look up your book. It sounds phenomenal.
Yes.
Let's have a look at it.
Yeah, I will have some info on it. It's called You Have So Much Potential, Inspiring Generational Healing and Transformation. Yeah, and it's an anthology. There's 31 of us, all different types of healers, and talking about the truth. Professionals talking from a heart-centered place, just like we have today, about how our life has really informed our work and how our work informs our life.
Yeah, fantastic. So thank you. And thank you for sharing about your book as well. It's wonderful to hear. And I'll put all those details in the notes. I'll get all that information from you and include it all, because I'm sure others would be intrigued to hear about how professionals are informed. We don't fabricate it. It comes from somewhere. We learn the basics through education. The rest is life experience. Truly through your own life experience and the people you work with. So thank you. I've had such a wonderful time talking to you, and I will put all this information into the notes. And thank you guys for listening as well this evening, and we will touch base again, Michelle. I have no doubt.
I have no doubt either. Thank you, Versha. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.